Yeah, so interview to foreigner who live in Korea.
Okay.
And then I interested in the Changwon. Do you come in live in Changwon?
I have many friends in Changwon, so I've been trying to live in Changwon for a few years now.
How many years?
So like I lived on Goje 5 years ago, and my friends introduced me to friends here. So ever since I left Goje, I've tried to live in Changwon because I like it. It's a big city, but not too big. I lived in Jinhae for half a year.
Before the Changwon?
Yeah, before Changwon. And then when I was back in Canada, when Corona started, I kept asking my recruiters to find me jobs in Changwon because I have friends here that can support me and help me, like Korean friends. So like it's not so lonely when you know people when you come to Korea. So in Goje, I had good friends, and I made good friends in Changwon, but I didn't really like Goje.
So Goje is your first time to come to Korea?
Yes.
So don't you live in the Seoul before?
No. So I did Goje for just about 2 years, and then the Jinhae for half a year, and then Jinju for 2 years.
2 years?
I've been in Changwon for 8 months.
8 months?
Yeah.
In Changwon, what's your occupation?
I'm a teacher for a kindergarten Hagwon, for kindergarten in the morning and elementary in the afternoon.
Yeah, I heard Changwon has the third largest number of foreigners in Korea, right?
There's quite a few of us here. Mostly, I think it's because they consider Jinhae part of Changwon, and Jinhae has the Navy base. So we get lots of foreigners from the Navy base. Then, lots of Hagwons, big population. And I meet lots of engineers here too. So lots of older foreigners that work at like car factories and robot factories, and but it's like you asked, there's not many, not a big foreigner town here.
Yes, I only live in Seoul, so.
Yeah.
Then my father-in-law live in Goje. Goje is many sheep. Okay, so have you learned in Korean language before?
I try. I'm not very good at learning language. I've tried to learn like 5 different languages, and none of them stay in my head. I know enough Korean to, help myself, like ordering food and thank you and yes and where's this, where's that, but conversationally, no. I also have trouble, pronouncing a lot of the Korean words. Like Dylan's always telling me, you just have to say the word hundreds of times until you get it right.
If you don't know the Korean language, is there any inconvenience?
Not too much. Like I find, especially in the bigger cities, there's enough either Konglish or I know enough Korean or they know enough English for us to understand a little bit for like banking and business wise. And then like if I need serious help, then I'll call one of my Korean friends. Or the Hagwons help you quite a bit as well for like medical and any serious issues.
And what about the housing or weather like that?
Housing is provided by the Hagwon, and at this Hagwon, I pay the utilities, but I give them the bill, so I don't have to worry about that either. Just comes off my check automatically.
Oh, it's good.
Yeah, it's very easy and convenient. I know some Hagwons are not as helpful, but this one is quite helpful for foreigners.
What's the part about working in the academy in Korea?
It's still probably like the language barrier because we aren't allowed to speak Korean. So when there is issues with our students, it can be quite hard to deal with them if you can't find a Korean teacher because they don't know how to express their problems all the time, but we get in trouble if we do use a bit of Korean that we know because we're an English only Hagwon. So like from the age of 5 Korean, it's English only, other than if they're speaking with our Korean coworkers.
How about in working environment? Some 학원 is do overtime and then 원장 give employees stress like that.
This one's pretty good. Our 원장님 is she's very hands off. Like she'll watch us a little bit just to make sure we're doing our job. All the Korean coworkers are really helpful and most of them are kind. There's like a few that are kind of old school Korean where they don't really like foreigners too much. But at this place, yeah, they're all pretty nice and helpful, and I haven't had any troubles with anyone yet. No micromanaging either. I know some of my coworkers have some issues though, but they're newer teachers. They never taught before, so there's people inside their classes watching them all the time. But I have experience, so they just let me do my job.
You have experience, and then any other teacher is helping, right?
Yeah. Changdom franchise is a really big franchise in Korea. Many times to find a different school because for the way they treat foreigners, it's bad. Not met any foreigner who is happy working at a Changdom. The bigger Hagwon chains are not very nice to foreigners. And
Seoul is stress more than Changwon, right?
I work next to the poly here, and they have the same issues. All the polys in Korea have the same issue. Just too much work, too much stress. The Changwon one is, I think, I haven't talked to too many people recently that work there, but past employees have not liked it. But I work at a kids club, which is a smaller franchise.
How old?
5, 6, and 7 for Korean age. And then in the elementary, we do grade 1 to 6 and first and second grade middle school, I think. A little spread out.
So is there anything different about dealing with children?
You have to be very mindful of what you say because they're always going to say something to their parents. So, and their parents are very sensitive about how their kids are taught.
Yeah, 학부모 is very sensitive.
Yeah. So my students are not as bad as, so when I was in Jinju, I worked at SLP.
SLP? Jinju have a SLP.
Yeah, so that was when I was there, that was their first SLP in Jinju. But they took it away now. Now it's something else, I think. But those parents were all doctors and lawyers and very high paid professionals. So the expectations of these parents of their children is very, very, very high for a kindergarten student. I mean, so when I was in kindergarten, we just painted and drew pictures all the time. There was never homework. My students go home with 4 books worth of homework and they're 6 years old. And they're trying to mimic kind of the Seoul style of Hagwon. So having extra programs. I don't think, not here, we haven't started doing teaching them Chinese or anything, but I know at SLP they wanted to start teaching them Chinese and coding and
Really? After the school?
yeah. Yeah, because apparently that's very popular in Seoul at the moment.
And how about in your academy parents' job at that academy now?
My students, some of them are doctors and stuff, but they're much more relaxed. So they don't have as many concerns and they're not always calling and looking in the windows and to watch their kids.
Looking at the window was the keys, right?
Yeah. Or coming in and saying, I want to see CCTV video of the classroom. So here, my coworker, she, cacaos them every day or band or whatever they're using after school. But so far they've been all pretty kind, and a lot of them actually, for my students, the parents speak English or understand English enough that when I send recommendations home for helping the students, the parents understand and they try to help their kids at home as well, which is very different from most Hagwon parents I've met. Most of them don't speak any English and they don't really care other than that their kid goes. So these parents seem much more involved in their children's growth, which I find interesting.
So are you satisfied with the workplace?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, like, so I live right downtown Changwon in Gyeongsangnam-do. It's a little bit noisy. First job was on Gojae, it was very quiet, and then Jinju was very quiet. Jinhae was very quiet. Now I'm just like, I'm on the party streets. So many nori bongs and business rooms and late night restaurants around me. So like the school is good. I like the school, but I would probably, if I could, find a quieter place to live, but Changwon is very expensive. The cities down here, it's considered quite expensive to find nice living. My apartment is spacious and clean, so I'm like, I don't complain about size or cleanliness of my apartment. I just don't like the neighborhood.
Why you decide to come to Korea?
I went to school for biology, and there was not a whole lot of jobs for biology. I ended up becoming a cook at a restaurant. I was a chef for 8 years, cooking in a steakhouse. Yeah, steak and lobster and crab and salmon. But there was no advancement. Always the same. Nowhere to no way to go up in the company. So one day I saw for teaching in China in the newspaper.
Teaching in China.
I was like, I can teach. Then I was like, but I don't want to go to China because China's so big and scary. So I went on the internet and I found out like many countries have these ESL programs. So I was like, well, like I've always liked the culture of Japan, and so I thought about that, and I was like, then I saw that Korea had a program, and I knew nothing about Korea other than, like what's in the war movies, like Korean War and stuff like that, and separation. So I got very fascinated with Korean culture and something new that I'd not experienced. So I immediately applied to a couple different recruiting agencies to come to Korea so I could have a new experience and experience a new culture and new food. My mom was very upset. So I'm moving to Korea. I was like, what? Why?
I wonder, do you have any family?
She's like my Korean family, and my friend Sunmi. They all consider each other like family. I consider them my older sisters. They take care of me and I take care of them. I was very lucky in that way coming to Korea, where I met some really good Korean people that were kind of adopted me. Like I've done like Chuseok and Solal things with them and visited onto their families' houses and had like traditional food on those days, and we often get pensions and celebrate holidays together, like teaching, and I like the food and I like the people, the culture. It'd probably be better if I could speak the language. I normally cook for myself, but I love going out with all my friends, getting some cups. I like soju. I prefer somek.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly a whiskey drinker, so all the Koreans are like, you're such a strong drinker. It's like, well, that's just because I drink whiskey. I'm used to strong flavor, and soju's so light flavor.
Yeah, and then thank you for the interview.
For sure.